一个晚上钱崩办完了。
It's all covered in today's China Truths.
In July 2025, the flood season officially began in China, but for millions, the disaster had already quietly arrived beforehand. From industrial zones in the north to agricultural regions in the south, the country was drowning in a chain of uncontrollable crises. 329 rivers had exceeded warning levels, a figure officially acknowledged by China's Ministry of Water Resources on July 4th. But the truth is more frightening. This is not merely a natural disaster, but a man-made crisis centered on one colossal structure, the Three Gorges Dam. For decades, the Three Gorges Dam has been the ultimate symbol of CCP power, a colossal project representing arrogance and the belief that nature could be conquered to propel China into a modern era. When it was completed in 2003, state media boasted that the dam could withstand a once-in-a-millennium flood. But later, this claim was quietly downgraded to a once-in-a-century flood. Now, as the dam itself is under the highest level red alert, even that downgraded promise is exposed as a dangerous lie. As water levels surpassed warning thresholds, the Three Gorges Dam opened as many as 11 floodgates, releasing a massive flow of 44,000 cubic meters per second, enough to fill West Lake in just 5 minutes and 300 West Lakes in a single day. But this was not flood control. It was flood creation. A political decision to protect the upstream at a devastating one to those downstream. Dr. Wang Weiluo, a hydraulic expert who once took part in planning the Three Gorges Dam, has spent years exposing what he calls a great deception. He asserts that the dam's primary purpose was never flood control, but profit from hydroelectric power. The original reports recommended lowering the reservoir to 145 meters during the rainy season to accommodate incoming floods. However, in order to maximize profits, water levels were kept high, stripping the dam of its buffer capacity and forcing emergency discharges to prevent rupture. Wang warns that this is a gray rhino event, a large, obvious threat that is willfully ignored. The problem extends beyond a single dam. China has approximately 98,000 reservoirs, and Wang estimates that a significant portion of them do not meet safety standards. Sudden water releases, often conducted at night, have become standard practice to avoid accountability. The foundation of the Three Gorges Dam is not only fractured in terms of governance, but also faces serious physical stability concerns. The Chinese government has admitted that the dam has experienced minor shifts. Studies have shown that excessive water pressure has caused structural cracks and increased seismic activity in the region. Some areas have seen a 30-fold rise in earthquakes since the reservoir was filled. NASA has confirmed that the dam's water mass has even slowed the Earth's rotation. The original sins of the project are recorded in the human costs it incurred. The construction of the Three Gorges Dam triggered the largest forced relocation in history for a single project, displacing at least 1.3 million people. The dam submerged 13 cities, 140 towns, and over 1,300 villages, along with countless priceless archaeological sites. Critics argue that the promised economic benefits never reached the local population. Instead, the electricity and enormous profits flowed to coastal megacities like Shanghai. China's tragic history of dam failures, such as the 1975 Banqiao Dam disaster that killed an estimated 230,000 people, serves as a chilling reminder of what's at stake. Michael Auslin, a scholar at the Hoover Institution, notes that if the Three Gorges Dam suffers a major failure in flood control or safety, it would be a fatal blow to the Chinese Communist Party's legitimacy. The regime has staked its reputation on the dam's success. Should it fail, the core promise of safety and competent governance would collapse. The resulting damage, combined with other governance challenges, could be the tipping point leading to widespread instability. As the Yangtze River rises, it is now testing the very foundation of the Chinese Communist Party's power. The Three Gorges Dam, a project born from political ambition and built upon conflicting priorities, has become the regime's greatest vulnerability. The question is no longer whether this colossal gamble will have dire consequences, but when, and whether the ruling party itself will be swept away with it. The timeline of destruction was relentless. Between June 29th and 30, the Sichuan Basin was hit by torrential rains. At 10 p.m. on June 29th, the Zaipingpu Reservoir near Dujiangyan, Sichuan, about 9 kilometers northwest of Chengdu, began increasing water discharge, worsening the flooding in the provincial capital by July 3rd. In Guizhou, Rongjiang County was devastated by 2 severe floods on June 24th and 28th. The people of Rongjiang were suffering immensely. When the second wave hit, rescue teams were forced to carry out emergency evacuations. It was a historic flood, the worst in 30 years. In Hubei, during the night of June 30th to July 1st, Xianfeng County was almost entirely swallowed by a sudden, violent flood. The speed at which the disaster struck was terrifying. On July 3rd in Taiping Town, Jiqixia County, Hainan Province, a river suddenly rose and submerged an entire road within just 2 to 3 minutes, according to eyewitnesses. In Hunan, floods began rising across the region from June 18th. The towns of Badagongshan and Longshan were rapidly engulfed. Over 400,000 people were affected, and 95,000 had to be evacuated. On July 12th, Hangzhou's West Lake witnessed a historic rainfall. At 2 a.m. on July 15th, a sudden downpour struck Xinzhou village in Lijiang. But even more dangerous was something operating quietly in the background, a deliberate flood discharge order issued by the authorities. On June 27th, Xinhua news agency Qiao, the official mouthpiece of the Chinese Communist Party, released a chilling report. To protect high-risk areas, water would be released into low-lying zones. It was an explicit policy declaration, a calculated plan to sacrifice certain communities to save others, and the authorities moved swiftly to carry it out. Soon after, the Tuoco hydropower plant opened 7 floodgates in succession, sending surging waters from the Yuan River into Rongjiang County. Residents were caught off guard. Social media posts confirmed the large-scale flood release, with no warning, no protection. All of this was merely a prelude to the crisis now unfolding along the Yangtze River. At 6 p.m. on June 30th, massive floodwaters from the Min and Jinsha rivers converged on Yibin City, Sichuan Province, sending tidal surges rushing toward the Three Gorges Dam. The pressure rose rapidly. By 2 p.m. on July 2nd, monitoring data showed the dam's reservoir had reached 152.87 meters, over 7 meters above the official flood threshold. Inflow volume was 30,000 cubic meters per second, while outflow was only 20,400. The dam was filling at an alarming rate. By July 7th, the situation had become critical. Water levels had surpassed the 171-meter warning line, approaching the dam's maximum design capacity of 175 meters. This was the moment the story took a much darker turn. A news bulletin from GPI News, released at 6:37 p.m. on July 7th, revealed the true extent of panic behind the closed doors of Zhongnanhai. According to reliable internal reports, top-level leadership in Beijing held multiple emergency meetings and issued an unusually harsh directive. Every possible measure must be taken to prevent the dam from breaking. Beijing issued its highest-level red alert. The armed police force, military, and engineering units were all mobilized around the clock. The Southern Theater Command was placed on combat readiness. Units quietly assembled around the dam, preparing for the worst-case scenario. But to relieve the pressure, authorities were forced to conduct emergency water discharges, a move one expert described as drinking poison to quench thirst. Every cubic meter of released water was a death sentence downstream. Yichang, Wuhan, and Nanjing all had to activate emergency response protocols. The government was sacrificing cities to save the dam. While millions of Chinese citizens lost their homes, livelihoods, and in some cases their lives, only a chilling silence echoed from Beijing. At a State Council press conference, Deputy Minister of Water Resources Chen Min confirmed the scale of the crisis. 329 rivers across the country were experiencing floods. Yet amid such widespread devastation, the top leadership of the Chinese Communist Party was nowhere to be seen. Nowhere was this abandonment more evident than in Jianfeng County, Enshi City, Hubei Province. The disaster struck in the dead of night. Residents received no warning whatsoever. It wasn't until 6 a.m. that authorities issued a red alert for heavy rain. But by then, it was far too late. In just 12 hours, rainfall reached 342.2 millimeters, breaking all local records. The CCP's official response was swift, not to provide aid but to control public opinion. Authorities claimed over 18,000 people had been evacuated and that there were no casualties, but eyewitness accounts at the scene contradicted this. A local resident named Huang reported that a couple living in the Romantic Castle residential area had died, and several others were hospitalized with injuries. Due to the CCP's ruthless information control, the true death toll remains a state secret.
Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. We will keep reporting on the COVID surge in China, so don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell to get the latest videos. And thank you for tuning in.